1201 East 7th Avenue, Florida Conference Room, and the rest of the board members are participating via communications media technology. Please look at the screens of your devices. An image of the flag is displayed. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Staff, please do the roll call. Oh, sorry. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hey, Danielle, you want to do the roll call?
Yes, sir. Committee Member Hudson? Here. Committee Vice Chair Johnson?
Here.
Committee Member Kemp?
Here.
And Committee Member Schisler?
Here.
And you do have a physical quorum, Chair.
Thank you. Rules for participation and roles and responsibilities of all committees are provided in the packet. Our next agenda item is public comment. There is no one scheduled to speak. Is there anyone present for public
Point of order,
comment?
my screen stopped. Could you hear that I was present?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Danielle, is there anyone present for public comment this morning?
No, sir.
All right, this concludes the public input section of the meeting. Next agenda item is elections of committee officers. Ms. Mandel, HART General Counsel, will chair this process.
Thank you. At this time, I'll take nominations for Chair of the Strategic Planning and External Relations Committee. Any nominations?
I'll nominate Director Johnson.
Are there any other nominations? With no other nominations, we'll close the process and ask for a vote to appoint Director Johnson as Chair of the Strategic Planning and External Relations Committee.
Committee,
Can I nominate myself?
Well, let's go ahead and we'll reopen and we'll then go ahead and ask to take a vote upon which each director will indicate their preference for chair.
Director Hudson?
Who's the current chair?
Kemp.
It's Director Kemp.
Sorry, Kemp.
Yeah.
Director Hudson? Who do you choose?
Kemp.
Kemp. Director Johnson?
Myself.
Director Kemp?
Myself.
Director Schisler?
Johnson.
Well,
So it's two for each.
well, we have two options then. We roll it over to the next meeting when, by then we should have another member appointed, or we can take another vote, whatever you would prefer.
Do we only have 4 members?
Yes, because they're still waiting for the chair of the board to appoint a 5th member. Well, why don't we do this? Why don't we just roll that over to the next meeting when we have a full board?
Okay.
Do we want to go ahead and do vice chair, or wait ahead and just roll that over to the next item, next committee until we, meeting?
Let's just roll it to the next meeting.
Let's just go ahead and do that then. Thank you.
Okay. The next item we have is the approval of meeting minutes. In the packet are the minutes for the January 23rd, 2023 Joint Strategic Planning and External Relations, Operations and Safety, and Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and the February 20th, 2000. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Staff, please take a roll call vote.
Committee Member Hudson?
Yes.
Committee Vice Chair Johnson?
Yes.
Committee Member Kemp?
Yes.
Committee Member Schisler?
Yes.
Motion passed unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a presentation on the HART rebranding update. Presentation from Mr. Omar Alvarado, Chief Delivery Officer, who is recognized to present the HART rebranding update.
All right, good morning, committee members, Ms. LeGrand. I'm going to take you guys quickly through just an update on where we are with the rebranding. We'll talk a little bit about just some campaigns that we're working on, the launch event we're working forward to, and the awareness campaign and our general timeline. So the reimagined teaser, as you can see there on the bottom, the graphic there, is really kind of a teaser to show a little bit of what the logo is going to look like. You guys have seen it, but as we share it with the community at large, we want to kind of create a teaser campaign to get some buzz around what the public launch looks like, put it out there on our shelters, on our transit assets, like the buses, the internal pieces, and also on social media, and do a little bit of paid media as well as we go through this process. So the launch event, we're planning for sometime in mid-April, early April rather, and we're planning to do it at the Marion Transit Center. It's a low-cost, no-cost option, and it gives us an opportunity to really display a couple of different assets with a transit center already kind of set up for something like this. So it'll be a public unveiling of the bus. Obviously, it'll give the riders, the community, you all as well, to kind of take a look at what the new asset will actually look like, or the new assets rather, will look like on the vehicle itself. So I talked a little bit earlier on just now about the HART Takes You There campaign, and it's really an opportunity for us to fully roll out the awareness of the brand. We're going to do things like iHeartRadio, 93.3 FLZ, the Tampa Bay Business Journal. So we're going to do it from a couple different fronts: social, radio, in person, and obviously print as well. In terms of the timeline, so we split it up into kind of two separate pieces, what the marketing pieces will look like and kind of the timeline to get the buses wrapped and things of that sort. So really the teaser campaign starts about a month before the launch, and the rebranding launch event you're looking at is, like I said, sometime in April. The website, social media, and all those pieces are really going to start the day of the launch. And the Take You There campaign obviously is going to start the day of the launch as well. So we have some kind of pre-teaser events, some things that we're doing to unveil it, and then some things to continue to kind of show the brand as we move forward. We're beginning to wrap vehicles sometime in April. We don't have the exact date locked up yet, but obviously early April. Then we're going to go into the facility and the shelter signages. So that'll begin about a 4 to 6 month process once launch starts. And then the organizational material. So that's your envelopes, your business cards, even the logo you see behind you there. So all those kind of pieces are going to be an ongoing process once we unveil everything on the actual vehicles themselves. Any questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, now we're going to move to old business. For old business, there's a presentation contained in the packet. Staff from HART or Colin and I'd like to.
Ms. Case, if you don't mind.
Shirley, thank you. Just wanted to provide you with a quick update. Since our initial discussion that we had with you on potential legislative issues, new legislation has been filed that will have a significant impact on HART. Specifically, Representative McClure and Senator Burgess, both members of the Hillsborough delegation who are in leadership, have filed House Bill 1397 in the House. The Senate bill is 1532. And that directs FDOT or its consultant to conduct a study exploring the possible merger of HART and PSTA or the dissolution of HART and PSTA with the goal of enhancing regional transit service and connectivity in the Tampa Bay region. Last week, at the House's first committee hearing, an amendment was adopted that removed the potential merger language and references to PSTA and focused the study on the potential dissolution of HART and the transfer of governance and staff. That bill was unanimously approved in the Transportation and Modal Subcommittee. It's got 2 more stops in the House before it reaches the floor. And then today in the Senate Transportation Committee, that same bill is up, and an amendment has been filed by Senator Burgess that also removes the PST language and focuses the study on exploring the dissolution of HART and the transfer of governance and staff. But both of those bills have 2 more stops that I expect that they will move through the process. So we just thought it was important as we're thinking about all the issues, that we're focusing and monitoring for HART, this is the most significant one, and we wanted to put it on your radar. Are there any questions?
Go ahead.
Yes. Transfer everything to whom?
It doesn't state that. The study's going to explore that. Right now, it just says the dissolution, and it's got language that says transfer of governance and staff, but it doesn't say, and that's obviously what the study at FDOT will conduct. They'll be exploring that.
So they could also arrive at a conclusion of leave it alone.
Right, so here's how the process will work. If the bill passes, it will become effective, the governor signs it, and then over the summer and in the fall, FDOT or its consultant will conduct a study exploring all the options that are listed in the bill. And then a report will be submitted to the governor and legislature January 1 of 2024. And as you are aware, session starts early next year. The 60-day session starts in January. So a bill, more than likely, if would implement the recommendations of the FDOT study, whatever those recommendations are.
Was there any commentary in the committee deliberations as to the genesis of the issue?
No, there were no comments, and your legislative team has not engaged in those comments yet because we thought it was important for the board to be aware of it and to determine how the board wants to engage in this issue. So no, there were no comments from the audience or debate. It was presented, the amendment was presented, and then it was unanimously approved.
Thank you.
Director Hudson?
I guess two kind of questions. The first, has there been, I guess, in the last 5 or so years, any other legislation targeting individual transit agencies? And you might not know the answer off the top of your head, but I think that's something that would be helpful for us to know for the next committee meeting. And secondly, I think that this idea of merger has been studied before. It might be deja vu, but if there have been any reports in the last couple of years about a merger between HART and PSTA, it would be helpful if the board members could get copies of this.
Yes, Mr. Chair, there was, specifically for the merger language, there was legislation that directed a study. There was a study done, and then recommendations were made to the legislature, I believe, in 2013. I think that KPMG also did a study to talk about what the savings would be. So we will make sure that you get a copy of that. That is referenced also in the bill analysis in both chambers. They've reviewed those reports too. So we've got the information on the merger. As far as whether or not a specific transit agency has been the focus, whether the dissolution, we will do some research. I'm not sure, but we will have that information to you before you have your full board meeting.
Thanks.
Kim, I got a couple of questions for you. You had made a comment that the legislative team had not made any, any comments toward the bill sponsors. Did I get that correct?
Yes, we have not had to sit down to express, whatever HART's position is because we wanted to bring it to you to see how HART wants to engage. If you want us to seek information on the genesis and background, we can engage in that now. If there are other things that you'd like for us to do, I think we would need to just get some direction and guidance from the board on that.
Mr. Chairman, add also. So we did have a call on Friday, I believe it was, with the Holland and Knight team and our internal team. So we did put down some recommendations as far as additional, if you will, items that we'd like to see included. If, from everything that we've been told through the Holland and Knight team, it seems like this is going to pass. So if it is, there's some things that we'd like to have included, like finding funding sources, if they're going to do a study. Again, this is to have FDOT or their consultant conduct a study to see the value, if you will, of this dissolution. there are specific items that they say need to be included in the scope of the study. But what's not included in the scope of the study are funding sources to figure out how would you keep an agency, regardless of where it's housed, how do you keep it in a financial sustainable, environment? So there are a series of, I would say, items or elements that we as a team have noodled through. But since this happened on Friday and the next meeting was this Monday, we thought it was prudent to meet with this committee to get additional input so that Kimberly Case and her colleague, Mark Delagal, can get beating the pavement and making sure that our voices are reflected as much as possible. So I just wanted to give you some background. It's not that Holland and Knight has not been doing their job or that the team has not been engaged with them, but because of the timing of it, we thought it was important to come to you.
Thank you, and I certainly didn't want to imply that Kim and Mark weren't up there. I know I saw Kim up there earlier in the week, last week, so I know that she's constantly in the halls working for us. I do want to kind of go back to a point that I had made at I think the last couple of meetings, though, where the importance of us having a legislative strategy and having our stuff essentially ready to go and being able to get on things as quickly as we can for situations just like this, how critical it is. And, I'm hoping that, with, upcoming meetings, we will be able to at least have some input to be able to give. But what I'm afraid of is that we are already way past being able to do anything to affect this, and hopefully either our team with Holland and Knight or Ms. LeGrand, our folks here, are going to be able to somehow assure the bill sponsors we're wanting to be able to work together so we can make this bill hopefully something that can be good for everybody involved. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to continue moving forward on that. Kim, I did actually just have one more question. How many more committee stops does the House bill have?
It's got 2 more stops, same for the Senate. The Senate bill will be up at 12:30 today, is expected to pass, and then it will also have 2 more stops.
When are they expecting when are policy committees expecting to stop in the House?
We're not 100% sure. I mean, we've heard for subcommittees, we've got another week or two, and then for committees, the appropriations go a little bit longer, but we're in week 3 now, so we're getting up to the end here as far as subcommittees.
Right, okay. Director Kemp, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
No, that's okay. I heard a lot of what I had out there. I just think it's important for us. I knew that there had been a study, and I was actually given it by someone the other week. I haven't had a chance to really go over it, but a study before. It's been a perennial. It's been kind of a perennial thing, and as many of you probably know, and I think the 2 things get conflated is the merging of the TPOs with Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough, and then the merging of the 2 transit agencies, which is, from all I've heard, PSTA and Hillsborough. One of the reasons that Pasco would not be part of that is that it is a county agency. We're independent agencies, and Pinellas and Hillsborough are among the states, as far as I can tell, pretty unique in being not under county or not a county agency. So we're in a unique situation with that. I think that the wisdom before was that there is not much to be gained in efficiencies by a merger, but I do think the critical question is what Ms. LeGrand said, is if such a merger were to take place, how would it be funded? Because right now we're uniquely also, Hillsborough and Pinellas are uniquely funded by ad valorem taxes. And those somehow would have to be replaced by the state, I would imagine. I can't imagine any other way of doing this. If the state were somehow to create an agency, I think they'd have to figure out how to fund it, and they don't do that anywhere else. But I just think that it's important for us to at our next meeting, definitely make a strong statement about where we are. I've had feedback from different state legislators about the genesis for this, but it might be well for all of us to talk or find out if I think there's some concerns about the stability of HART. So that's kind of the feedback and the information that has been relayed to me. But I think it's important for us to discuss this at the next meeting, and definitely have. I mean, it's late in the game, but definitely take a position on this one way or the other. And of course, for me, it would be that we would definitely be managing our own agency with our own resources that we collect here at Hillsborough County.
Thank you. Director Hudson, you had?
Yeah, just a question, and maybe this is for Kim, but I think Director Johnson's point's so well taken about the speed of this. I mean, things change, minute by minute in Tallahassee, and we meet once a month, and obviously we sometimes struggle to even have a quorum here. We've deadlocked on a chair vote. Do other, and it's maybe Kim for you, do other transit agencies have some type of subcommittee? I mean, that seems like something that someone like a Director Johnson, given the industry he works in, would be particularly well suited for, to respond more quickly to this. I mean, I'm leery of subcommittees and subcommittees of subcommittees, but it just seems like this doesn't work. This monthly tempo of reacting to events that happened 31 days ago.
Director Hudson.
That was somewhat a complaint, somewhat a question, yeah.
Hear Kim. I'm going to hear Kim, and then we go to you.
Oh, okay.
Kim, can you go ahead and answer that real fast?
Sure, and I know that Lisa could probably weigh in on this too, as far as what some of the other entities do that she works with. But what I would say is, I think that being able to quickly respond and be nimble, since the legislature is such a fungible, the process is such a fungible thing, I think it would be helpful, and I definitely would love for us to be able to react more quickly. However that structure would be. Lisa, could you?
And I was
yeah, I mean, I know some other agencies at certain points don't even have representation in Tallahassee, and they're, it's just how their boards are structured differently than the way HART is, and so that, I don't know of any of them that have had a separate legislative subcommittee, but we can look into what other structures look like more thoroughly.
So in my experience, and Lisa and Kimberly, thanks for giving your insight. My experience, being in Atlanta, where they were at a point where something similar was going on. The agency gave, authority, I would say, that the folks that were working on these issues could work directly with the chair of their committee to continuously engage. So they didn't change their meeting structure. They still had monthly, committee meetings and monthly board meetings, but there was an understanding that there would be engaged conversation, and if anything bubbled up that really required the full board's attention, they would call that to order, right? Or they would send it to their general counsel, who would send it to the entire board, and work outside of, still within, the public records forum, but allow them to be a little more nimble. In this case, I would say for us, we did know that the first bill had dropped as far as the merger. We had conversations at our last meeting about that. Between then and I think it was Thursday, I just went back in my notes, so my apologies, ladies. When we talked on Thursday, we realized that this was, I would say, a little different. The amendment was different than what we thought or we had prepared to discuss. So we did think it was important. What we want for today, though, is not to come back in the next board meeting before a decision is made. And when I say decision, it's not like we're deciding anything. We just want some guidance to see if you're comfortable with adding, trying to add the language about looking for additional funding sources or how this agency would be funded. If you give me a moment of privilege, I do want to read through the points. There are not many that are included in this study. And the scope of the study, as it's stated in the amendment, is to A, the dissolution of the governance structure, including governing board membership, powers, and responsibilities. B, the drawdown or transfer of staff. C, the transfer of financial assets and obligations. D, the transfer of responsibility and administered programs. E, the transfer of facilities and operations. F, impact to federal or state grants or funds. G, any legal or financial impediments to or limitations on such dissolution. H, the advantages and disadvantages of dissolution or transfer. I, any other matters deemed necessary or appropriate by the department. And again, as Kimberly mentioned, that all of this is supposed to be submitted to Tallahassee by January 1 of '24. So, they have these, I guess maybe 7 or 8 scope items that they want to include. And what we wanted to see from this conversation is there anything else that we would like to see included that we think will be beneficial as the report is developed to have this information?
Welcome, Director Johnson's thoughts. I mean, does it matter? I mean, is this, I mean, if this is a little bit like the condemned man making requests to the executioner, right? I mean, if the bill is about studying something like the dissolution of HART, which is obviously existential, I mean, I think there's one thing missing here. I think it's relevant, especially if FDOT's doing the studies. What would the impacts of this be on concurrency? What would the impacts of this be on population growth, comprehensive plans in Temple Terrace and Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa? Those are interesting things to study, but I'm not completely sure if that's something that would be welcomed by the sponsors.
So I think there's two things going on, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. The dissolution of HART is one thing. Having transit service is mandated federally. So just because HART is dissolved does not mean that there is not still transit service provided. You have to do it, right? So the question now is, take away the logo of who's providing the service. There's still things that are going to be needed in place. And as leaders of this organization today, right, regardless of the logo, what is it that we would want to know in a study, right? Because at the end of this analysis, again, let's put to the side about the condemned man, and I do agree with that, I guess, metaphor. But if we put that to the side, if it is purely being done to see if there's a more efficient way, I'm just, for argument's sake, then what we should want, I would think, to understand is what else is required in an analysis to understand if there are things that can be done to run the organization as efficiently as possible. And are all those things listed here in this scope? I would venture to say they're not, because there's nothing in here about funding, right? There's nothing here about providing better access. There's nothing in here about how do we respond to growth and what does that look like. It doesn't talk about how you would scale up the organization as demand increases. Also, even though it's not listed here, if the impetus of the original bill before the amendment was to merge PSTA and HART, so now you're going from a service area, our service area was just over 1,000 square miles. You're adding PSTA service area. Now, how does that work, right? You can't run an operation with one heavy maintenance facility in Pinellas County that's going to be responsible providing service in Hillsborough County, right? So to me, even if you look at the original bill and you look at the amendment and you understand, as much as we can glean, the impetus behind what's written here, there's an opportunity to say, well, how many heavy maintenance facilities would you need to provide a regional service if HART is dissolved, right? So, that's kind of what, at the end of the day, if there is a report that comes out on January 1, it needs to be something that's comprehensive, regardless if HART is here or not, for the community, to ensure that whatever comes next, if it remains HART or something else, that the entire community, as well as Tallahassee, has a better understanding of what it will take to really provide regional transit service. So I think this gives us an opportunity to at least try to put our fingerprint, is that a fire drill? Okay. Okay, thank you. There's a fire drill coming, so I didn't know if he sprung it on us today. I was like, come on, man. So that's really what we were trying, when we had our call on Thursday, we're like, okay, let's look at this, from an academic lens, if you will, and what do we want to see included here? And some of what I just shared were some of the ideas that we noodled around.
Yeah, I think those are great, because I don't want to be overly focused on the institution itself, because I mean, the duties we have here to the writers, right, the people that are actually using this service. It's not to be meta focused on whether it's called HART or whatever it is. And I'm, I don't fear this bill or the study, but I think whatever we can do to make it as complete as possible would be helpful, because they're only going to do one probably. So.
Director Kemp, your hand is still up. Did you have any comments?
No, I don't, sorry.
Okay. Quickly to Director Hudson's comments. I think I think you're right on as far as how we need to be able to do this and need to do it quickly. And I think there's a few different areas, a few different points that you kind of hit that are important. One, I think that we really need to figure out a way to be able to revamp this committee structure, to be able to make sure that we are doing things in a way that is going to be, beneficial to the organization, and, making sure we can make timely decisions, when things like this are going to be happening. Now, it may be, again, maybe making my, meal requests, at your, as you mentioned, but I think that's something that, if we do end up getting through this, and having an opportunity to be able to improve, I think that's something we need to be looking at. I, for one, I welcome the study. I think that it's good for us. I think it's something that probably is needed at this point. And, we've had plenty of things that have been out in the papers for years now, and maybe this is the opportunity to be able to show Tallahassee that, we are willing to work with them and want to be able to find the best way to make sure our riders are going to be taken care of. So, I don't know how we're going to be able to do that now. I don't know if we're going to be able to have the opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with the bill sponsors to make sure, is there some type of a mandatory language that we would be able to use to be able to make sure everybody's getting what they want, and, that's probably a conversation that is a big board conversation, and unfortunately, we have another week for that, and by that point, we will be almost having a bill on the floor. Ms. Mandel, if you had your hand up, or?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on a couple of things from my perspective. As it relates to the committee structure, that is going to be the focus that I would like to move into on revamping the entire policies of HART, which I don't think meet anybody's needs and are really not valuable and helpful. Secondarily, our meeting that we have in a week, 2 weeks, is a special emergency meeting.
That's right.
We cannot bring up items that are not already on the agenda because, of course, your rules read that way. So whatever's on that agenda, now I think there is going to be a presentation that's remaining on your agenda, but we'll have to be somewhat careful about that. Third of all, this committee can only make a recommendation to the big board. That being said, and given the situation, my recommendation for today, if you want to take an action and you have a quorum take an action, is to go ahead and authorize whatever action you want to take, as Ms. LeGrand has said, and then we could take that back to the chair, and the chair would have additional opportunity to authorize under the way your policies read right now. It would seem to me that in this particular instance, the CEO has general authority to go ahead and make these recommendations under your policies today. But I think we're proving the point that our policies are literally not working for us.
Well, I certainly think that we need to be having at least some conversations with, at least the bill sponsors and with folks in Tallahassee to, at least show that we are open to a study. We want to play ball. We want to find ways to be able to work together, because as Ms. LeGrand says, there is going to be public transit in Hillsborough County, and we want to be there to be able to help out. We want to be the ones who are going to be able to make sure that, the ridership is going to continue to be able to get where they need to go in the manner that they need to be serviced. However, if we are already way behind and even having conversations with the bill sponsors, I think that we are. It looks like what the study is really trying to be able to show is that we we need a lot of work and a lot of things to be able to be looked at. And I don't know if, if that's having the chair being able to authorize Ms. LeGrand or Ms. Case up in Tallahassee to be able to go ahead and move forward. But I think that maybe this is an opportunity for us to be able to at least start some kind of conversation, or at least show that we are wanting to be able to have a conversation. I don't know if that needs to be in the, go ahead, Director Schistler.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we need to move forward with this at the very least, to see if we can get Ms. LeGrand and Kim in front of Burgess and who was the other one? McClure. Yeah, we get them in front of them as quickly as possible. I think we need to move, and I'll be willing to put in the form of a motion to recommend to the chair of the board to authorize Ms. LeGrand to go to Tallahassee and sit with the sponsors of the bills, with Ms. Case, and see what we can do about it. Make sure that we're part of the process.
Yeah, I'll second that with underscoring whatever urgency we can provide in this recommendation vote.
Well, I think we have a motion on the floor and a second by Director Hudson to be able to authorize Ms. LeGrand or Ms. Case to be able to reach out to Senator Burgess and Representative McClure on the proposed legislation regarding HART. So I think if there's Ms.
No, I was going to say that's appropriate.
I really think it might be more appropriate for our board chair to do so along with our lobbyists to do that approach. I also think it's important for, as this is done, for them to understand the scope of HART. The fact that we are larger in population than 12 different states and 3 times the physical size of Pinellas with very little connection in terms of, the bridges, and a little bit of connection between the 2 counties over the bay there, Oldsmar area. But I think it's just important to kind of understand some of the physical challenges, the as we say, the funding challenges. But I think it would be important as well to have representation by our board chair in this regard. If and we don't have the board chair here, but I think that would be someone that we should have as well.
I think that anybody that we can have, anybody at all having the ability to be able to, be there and to be able to discuss with the members on, the importance of the organization and that we want to be able to work together, be it the chair, be it one of us, I don't think anybody is going to really debate on, having anybody there as far as who would, certainly if Chair Vieira is able to attend or is able to actually, speak with them, I certainly would love to be able to see him do that as well. So I don't, if we want to amend the motion to be able to, I don't.
I'll also need to, and you go ahead and make the motion that you want to. I just want y'all to be aware, first of all, we need to see what his schedule is, but secondarily, I have to go back and look at the board policies on the delegation issue, because I think that it sounds to me that maybe we want some ability to delegate to another member if need be, the ability to have those conversations if his schedule doesn't allow. I know, Mr. Johnson, you're up in Tallahassee a lot more than probably most of us are, so it might be, I have to look at the policies and talk with the chair about that. But
Perhaps, and Director Schistler, if, you'd be amenable to this, maybe we just kind of leave the motion wide open to where we just direct HART and the board to be, or direct HART and Holland and Knight to be able to reach out to the sponsors of the legislation to be able to start a conversation in some capacity. And I don't know if that would be broad enough to be able to have Chair Vieira, that would be allow Chair Vieira to be able to be a part of it, or Ms. LeGrand, or however we want to be able to do it. But I think the important part of this is that we need to be able to go out there and we need to be able to talk with the folks that need to be spoken with. And right now, I mean, we've just spent like 15, 20 minutes just talking about, okay, should we go and talk about this to somebody? I mean, this is, just a perfect example of why the committee is almost broken on what we want to be able to try and do.
I will amend my motion to whoever the chair deems fit and appropriate to approach the sponsors of the bills.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Danielle, you want to call the roll?
Yes, sir. Committee Member Hudson,
Yes.
Committee Vice Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Committee Member Kemp,
Yes.
and Committee Member Schisler.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Just to make a point, I think that this last 15 minutes is what illustrates the issues with these board policies, or whatever the issue is, that we can't, the fact that a motion would even be required to engage with lawmakers about a bill examining the dissolution of the entity that we're board members of, that should just be like water. It just happens. Like that shouldn't, we've got to figure out a way to make this more nimble and reactive to the way the world actually works. Things like the branding and, examining which, flavor of, federal or state grant we want to target, that's more deliberative. But something like this, this is really fast moving. This is bringing a horse and buggy to the Daytona 500. And there's got to be some other transit agency that's figured out a structure. So I know that you are likewise displeased with the board policies. So I just think that's going to be an important conversation in the months to come.
I couldn't agree with you more, Director Hudson, and this is where, and I made this, comment, at either the last meeting or the last board meeting. It's like, we are in week 3 now of a 60-day process, and, this is something that I talk to my board about, and I talk to other people in the process, that if we have not already made an illustration, I've already talked about what we need to talk about on an issue, then your issue's pretty much left you behind, and you're going to be speaking to a wall at some point in Tallahassee. And unfortunately, I think that we are really proving exactly why we need to be able to be studied, and we need to be able to be looked at, with a magnifying glass from folks in Tallahassee. And I certainly, my personal opinion would be, trying to be able to speak out to Representative McClure and Senator Burgess to, tell them we need to. I welcome the study, and I want to make sure that we are able to serve the public the way we can. So I think we've said enough on that for this morning. Let's see. Sarah, I think that was it for old business. Do we have any new business? Ms. LeGrand, do you have anything you'd like to add? All right. And hearing none, the meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.